When you open your pattern, it looks like this. It's a big tissue paper mess. So, and not particularly helpful or useful at this point because you need to cut it down. So what I'll do is take the squares or the different pieces and I'll cut it, and I'll always cut it so I'm capturing all the sizes of the dress. Just because I'm doing a size 6 doesn't mean I'm going to cut down to the size 6, because then as my girls get bigger and I want to do a size 10 or size 12 in the same dress, I don't have the pattern anymore, so that's miserable. Cut it to the highest size, always keep it to the highest size, and then you can always fold the corners or do some markings in a bunch of different ways so that you can get the smaller size that you're cutting for now without ruining the full pattern and having to rebuy it. So go ahead and cut out all the big pieces and be sure you're cutting the full part. So I've laid out the Fabric B View B pieces. So I have piece 3, which is for the sash, and then 7, which is for the collar, and then I'm also doing 9, which is the armhole binding in this color. So I've laid that out on here too. A few things to know: I usually just pin this onto the fabric, and this is the wrong side of the fabric, so I've pinned the right sides together. Or placed the right sides together. You'll pin it down, and then I use Mark Be Gone, which will just disappear with a little bit of water. Go ahead and make my markings and then cut it out, and then I'll go back and do any of these markings for notches and stuff later once I already have my pieces out of there. A couple other things to note: on the edges I'm doing size 6, so I've just folded them over. You could also just lay it all the way flat and then use some fabric marking tool to make the mark underneath, and I will have to do that when I make this down to the right size. So I typically cut it out ahead of time, and then I'll go back and trace it so that I have the specific sizing for the size 6 on the path. It's just a little easier to work with.
Here you're just going to use a tracing wheel and tracing paper and mark along the curve and mark the notches. I should have had this pinned down, but doing it one-handed is kind of tough. You get the idea. Once you have it all marked along there, you can lift it up and see the yellow markings underneath. And I go back and trace this with my Mark Be Gone pen. So it's just a little bit darker, and I can see it when I go to start cutting.
Okay, so I've pinned the pattern down onto here. You'll see a few things. I pin it in place. This is the line for the size 6. These notches I'm going to mark with some water-soluble pin that'll disappear with the water. And you're also going to mark this notch on here. Just put that little dot on the other side. Make sure you do it on both pieces. This is where the zipper is going to actually go down to. And then a few notes here. This is the tulle lining. This is for the lining. And then this is for the skirt. So be sure you're cutting the right distance on that. And then fold your pattern to where it needs to go for the size and notch that as well. For the bodice, I've pinned it in place. I've marked in blue on my outer lines, and then anywhere that I have this curve, I'm using some tracing paper. It has this yellow color to it, and I've put it underneath, and then I'll trace with my pin.
Now you have some cut pieces, and we're ready for the next step.